Chuck Jones loved to work with classical music. There's no question about that. Long-haired hair. Baton Bunny. Rabbitsville, of course. He likes to play with the music that people know. Rossini, Liszt, Wagner, Mendelssohn, von Suppe. And so What's Opera Doc is really Jones's respectful, yet extremely satirical approach to Wagner and the Wagner operas.
And to put Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd into that opera is the best way to make a farce out of it. And what's great is the basic premise of the opera in the film is the basic premise of the first Bugs Bunny cartoon, which is Elmer Fudd chasing a rabbit.
Be very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
While Chuck never talked too much about the origins of that cartoon, he was fond of quoting Mark Twain's, "A lot of Wagner's music is better than it sounds."
Michael Maltese was the writer, and Michael probably had the germ of the idea because there's a sequence similar to the parody of opera with Bugs in an earlier cartoon made during the war called Hair Meets Hair, where Bugs is being chased by a German officer, and for a few moments they go into this Wagnerian parody. Michael Maltese wrote that earlier cartoon, and Friz Freleng directed that film. So I think that Mike Maltese had an idea to expand on that more.
And some of it is spoofing Disney. Elmer's great shadows in the beginning are kind of an homage to Night on Bald Mountain and Fantasia.
And Elmer Fudd is this little guy, and there's a huge cliff. Well, the animator animated Elmer Fudd. He gave it to me to make the images on the side of the mountain, on the cliffs.
Chuck Jones worked very closely with Maurice Noble, whom he considered an extraordinary designer. And once he got a storyboard from Mike Maltese, he would start going over it with Maurice Noble, figuring out how the layout should work and what designs would work with it.
Very flat artwork, flat backgrounds, a stylized, high artistic design was in vogue, and Maurice Noble was really a master of that.
When you look at the columns with these absurd extended scroll capitals and the great swags of drapery around them that are in part spoofing the Dance of the Hours in Fantasia and in part just spoofing that look of ballet and stage design in general. He's caricaturing a physical thing, an object, in a way that very few people could.
He knew exactly where to focus the eye. What's Opera Doc is full of proscenium arches, like where Bugs is lying on the chaise longue, and there's these elaborately designed little filigrees and stuff that surround the frame, but don't take your eye away from it. You know, they're just window dressing, as it were, but they give it that grandiose quality, like being in an opera house. Milt Franklin was the music director. He had been with Carl Stalling from the beginning. They knew how to, with the Warner Brothers Orchestra, to do this kind of treatment. You had Mel Blanc.
Might I inquire to ask him, what's up, Doc?
You had Arthur Q. Bryan. And
I'm going to kill the rabbit.
Both he and Mel Blanc were wonderful singers, and they could sing in character, and did.
Well, it was the last great appearance of Arthur Q. Bryan, Elmer Fudd, who began as a radio tenor back in the 1920s. So he could sing.
Had he not been able to sing that well as Elmer Fudd, the cartoon wouldn't have been nearly as good as it is. This was his masterpiece as Elmer Fudd.
The only thing that was cut was the one scene where he said, "Fire, whitening, smog!" And it wasn't powerful enough, so they got Mel Blanc to substitute just that one line. It was like, "Fire, whitening, smog, smog!" You know, the way Mel Blanc could do it.
They were both excellent actors and came out of radio, but it's also very clear that when they had someone like Chuck Jones directing them, he brought out the best in their acting.
Bye!
That was the Wabbit.
Could you play that bye just a little lower, Mel? Just bye.
Bye! Bye!
All right. All right. Keep them rolling.
Kill the rabbit.
And we almost
I don't
have it.
think I'm right yet, and I'm going to kill the rabbit, am I?
That's a boy. That's fine.
Bye!
Three of the great stars of the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo had posed for Disney for the Dance of the Hours, and two of them, Titania Ryabashinska and David Lachine, went on to do a number of films at Warner Brothers about ballet. And while they were there, Chuck and some of his artists sketched them. That's why the ballet moves in What's Opera Doc are so well executed. As caricatured and as absurd as it is, when Bugs does his fish dive into Elmer's arms, he lands with perfect port de bras. His limb placement is all impeccable.
That's accurate. When he does that bounce across the thing and dropping the head and all that, that's the way it's done. But who's doing it? That's what makes it.
Ken Harris was the animator that Chuck always chose to do dances, and he was great at that. Ken himself was quite good on the dance floor. All of that dancing with Bugs and Elmer, all that was animated by Ken, and I did the assistant work on it.
During the 50s, each of the Warner's directors had to turn out 10 cartoons a year on a 5-week schedule, plus 2 weeks for vacation. Chuck would juggle the time cards so that they could spend 6 or 7 or 8 weeks on something that was really stretching them and a really ambitious cartoon like What's Opera Doc.
I got to the point where, all of us got to the point where we could do Roadrunners very quickly. We knew it was going to take a lot of effort to do What's Opera Doc, so what we did was we all got together and decided to do a Roadrunner picture in 3 weeks, which we did.
But so far as Eddie Seltzer and the business office knew, every cartoon took exactly 5 weeks.
Chuck did spend a lot of time. He just wanted to do the perfect operetta.
Magic helmet, and I'll give you a sample.
What's Opera Doc in some ways gives people everything that they expect out of an opera, by way of generalizations, by way of all the popular tunes that they know from Wagner.
Yes, I know it. I can't help it.
Bugs and Elmer always know that they're in an opera. They never forget that fact, which is why Bugs at the end says,
Well, what did you expect in an opera? A happy ending?
he knows how an opera is supposed to end, and therefore he follows those conventions.
What's great about it is that in its day, when it was made and it was released, it was not recognized, and it was not nominated for an Oscar. It was not written up or mentioned as any kind of great cinema or Chuck Jones's masterpiece or anything in those days. It was subsequent television viewings of the film and an appreciation really by the younger generation, looking at the body of work of Warner Brothers cartoons that really pulls that one out as really something special.
At the time we work on these cartoons, we're never really too sure what the acceptance will be, because you're just sort of trudging away at the drawing board. And you would see pencil tests, but the pencil tests didn't have the music going with it. But when we finally saw it on the big screen for all of the employees, we marveled at what a unique feat that was.